Welcome back to HBCU Pulse Radio. Listen, we're talking about everything going on in higher education in the Trump administration, and especially speaking about student loan repayment. I went to Fort Valley State University, and I'm still paying off my student loans. I got the private student loans with Sallie Mae, but the federal student loans, it's a whole big old mess. So I had to bring in a student loan expert and also an attorney. And I have Miss Rae Kaplan, head attorney at Kaplan Law Firm and student loan expert. Rae, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, I'm super excited to have you on because I think that a lot of folks right now are just confused at what is going on. And I know for me, I'm not exempt from this. I'm just as confused as everyone else because I'm a federal student loan borrower. So I want to start off with this. So with reassumption of federal loan collections that started on May 5th, what are the immediate consequences that borrowers in default need to know?
So borrowers in default are in kind of a bad situation because, right, we haven't really had to worry about student loans for the last 5 years because they were in that COVID forbearance where no payments were required and everything was just kind of frozen. And a lot of people forgot about their student loans, or if they were getting notices from their servicers, or if they moved, they may not have gotten any notices. So there are about 5 million people that they know are in default right now, with another 4 million on top of that at risk for being in default. So if you are in default, that means that you haven't made a payment for 270 days, which is 9 months. And it's not just any payment, it's like a qualifying payment. So no qualifying payment for 9 months, your loans are in default. So that means they leave the servicer. So there's Ed Financial, Nelnet, Aidvantage, and Mohila. Those are the federal servicers. So when they go into default, they leave and they go to a private debt collector. And what's really bad is that they add 20% onto the loan balance for collection fees and costs, which is a really big number. And then interest accrues then on that larger number. But if your loans are in default, it's a negative trade line on your credit, and the Department of Ed can do a wage garnishment. So they can take 15% of your wages. They can take your tax refunds. They can take your Social Security income. And there are ways to get your loans out of default and rehabilitated, and even to get that negative mark off your credit, which can be worth up to 170 points. So you could see your credit score drop by 170 points. And if we can fix it and get them rehabbed, go up by 170 points.
So see, this is something that's serious. We're talking about wages being garnished. We're talking about credit scores going down. And the thing about it is with me is that although it seems crazy to me that college seems as if it was just yesterday, I graduated 6 years ago. I graduated in December 2019. So everybody that's listening doesn't know about this whole entire process because you have a lot of young alumni that are in their 20s, in their early 30s that, number one, didn't have to deal with this during COVID. And now all of a sudden they say, hey, May 5th, a couple weeks before May 5th, you have to start repaying. So let's sort of walk it down. So what does it mean for a borrower to enter default? And how long does the process take? And what necessarily triggers the loan collection?
So as soon it's a pretty clear-cut process when you have federal loans. So there's a lot of confusion out there. Sometimes people don't know if they have federal loans or if they have private loans. Sometimes they have a combination. So if you're not sure, go to studentaid.gov. That's the site that's run by the Department of Ed. And you put in your information, your name, your date of birth, your social, create an account, write down your username and password. I always have to say that. And if you have loans that are federal, they will populate in there, and you'll be able to see exactly how much you have, when the next payment is due, who the servicer is. And that's a really good place to get started. If you see that the loans are in default, because it'll say that your loans are in default and that they've been sent to a debt collector, then if they are in default, what you want to do is contact that debt collector. Now, this is always kind of a rough road because debt collectors can be rather aggressive. And so that's when I really recommend, especially if you have a large debt, is to have an advocate on your side. My firm, this is what we do. We help people get as much relief as possible on their student loans, federal or private. But let's say you have to do it on your own. Contact the debt collector and say that you want to get your loans rehabilitated. So it's everybody's right under the statute. But the problem is that the debt collectors, they don't have a fiduciary duty to you, the borrower. Their job is to get as much money paid on that loan as possible. And I've heard them say some pretty wild and crazy things to borrowers to try to push them to make a payment that this person really can't afford, but that's their job. So our job is to get them back on track and stick to rehabilitation, which for a lot of people is $5 a month because we get to use your income and expenses. We get to deduct your expenses. And then the formula is basically 10% of your income. That's what your payment should be. That's over 9 months. Then your loans are rehabilitated. And then they go back to a servicer. And then we have to pick a payment plan and see, are you eligible for any type of loan forgiveness? Because a lot of people are, and they just don't know.
Exactly. And I want to just say this, when you said the debt collectors and how aggressive they are, I know firsthand. They call me more than my parents do. Like I'm just like I'm picking up my phone. I know it's a debt collector. So trust me, I think a lot of people, especially within these past few years, with just the economy and all these different things going on, and of course COVID in 2020, a lot of people know about those debt collector calls, and it gets crazy. So if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Rae Kaplan, head attorney at Kaplan Law Firm and student loan expert. So you talked about student loan forgiveness. So let's clear up some confusion about loan repayments and the public service loan forgiveness. So we've heard that borrowers are receiving letters about receiving higher monthly payments. So you're an attorney. I want to say I like attorneys. I feel as if maybe my student loan repayment model going better had I been an attorney. Maybe I should go back, get another loan, and then get back in school because I'm watching Suits and I love it, right? So I want to know the rights that borrowers have. So what rights do these borrowers have, and what immediate action should they take to make sure they're ready for what's to come?
Okay. So when you get your first statement from your servicer, they herd everybody into this standard payment plan. So the standard payment plan is if you're going to pay your loans off over 10 years. But you have all these other payment options that they don't tell you about. And they just kind of put everybody in the standard plan, which can be major sticker shock. Like you'll get that statement and it'll say, your next payment is due in 5 days and that payment is $3,000 and everyone panics, right? And then if you try to call the servicer, you might be on hold for 3 or 4 hours and they drop the call. And so it's very frustrating, right? And then you might get somebody on the line at the servicer who doesn't know what they're talking about or can't give you correct information. And it's a real hassle. So here's what I want people to know. You are not stuck with that standard payment. You have all kinds of other payment options that are much better. One big, great option is income-based repayment. And despite scary headlines and stuff like that, even with the Trump administration, IBR is not going anywhere. That's income-based repayment. Most people qualify for income-based repayment, which is 10 to 15% of your adjusted gross income is your payment. So if you are making payments under an income-based repayment, and you got to apply and get enrolled in one, and they have to approve you for one, but once you get that payment and they say, all right, your first payment is due June 1st, and that monthly payment is, say, $200 a month, because remember, the payments are going to be very reasonable and for the most part, much lower than that standard payment plan. Now, if you work as anywhere in the public sector, so let's say you work for a not-for-profit, a school, a college, or you're a public school teacher, a firefighter, healthcare workers. Here in Chicago, most of these hospitals are not-for-profit entities. So if you work at one of these hospitals, you're eligible for something called public service loan forgiveness. What that means is 10 years of payments under an income-driven plan. And after 10 years, no matter what your balance is, the whole thing gets forgiven, including all the interest that accrues over those 10 years. So for many people, let's say you owe $100,000 or more, $200,000, and your income is about $45,000, $50,000, your monthly payment will be around $300-$400 a month. And you've got to recertify each year. But after 120 months, maybe you've only paid back about $30,000 on that $200,000 loan balance. Doesn't matter. The whole thing gets forgiven, and it's a tax-free forgiveness. So it is a great program. Many people don't know about it. You'd be surprised how many doctors and nurses I talk to every day don't know about it. But it's tricky to navigate, and you have to make sure that you're in compliance with the law so that you get that benefit. They don't make it super easy. That's really where we come in and making sure that our clients are in compliance and that they're going to get public service loan forgiveness or other types of forgiveness. That's just one type of forgiveness under the law. There's other types of loan forgiveness. And I don't know if you want me to go into those, but public service loan forgiveness is a big one. It applies to more people than they think. And there are all these misconceptions. People think like, oh, well, you have to be a teacher at a public school. No, you could be the cafeteria lady at the public school. You still qualify. And or they'll say like, well, it doesn't apply to me because I have Parent Plus loans because I'm the cafeteria lady at the school and I took out $200,000 in Parent Plus loans for my kids. Nope, it applies to you too. But you have to know how to do it and how to get access to the relief.
Wow. And I want you to go into all of it because I think that our audience is going to really benefit from this as they try to navigate what's going on. And when it comes to public service loan forgiveness, there's been rumors of it being cut in legislation that's going to make it where it possibly could be cut. So could you clarify what's happening and what's going on? I mean, I know that that's the intersection of law, but also legislation when it comes to Congress. But a lot of people are nervous at what's to come. So could you clarify what's happening?
Yeah. So what's happening right now is that the Trump administration issued an executive order asking the Department of Education to make some tweaks to public service loan forgiveness. So the law says if you have federal student loans and you are enrolled in a qualifying payment plan, which is an income-based repayment plan, none of the other ones, income-based, and you're working full-time in the public sector, meaning for a not-for-profit, after 120 months, your entire loan balance, even if it's $1 million, gets forgiven tax-free. So the Trump administration is attempting to, by executive order, they asked the Department of Ed, can you make some changes to public service loan forgiveness rules so that, let's say you're working at a not-for-profit entity that the Trump administration doesn't like. Like the ones that they don't like are if they think that the not-for-profit is assisting people who are undocumented people coming into the country not legally, then they would make people who work for that organization no longer eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Or if that not-for-profit entity is maybe engaging or helping with some kind of like assistance for Hamas or other groups that they have designated as terrorist organizations. So, and it can be kind of, if it does get applied and it does happen, that could be more broad than most people are aware, because there are a lot of even Catholic charities out there that assist undocumented workers in getting settled in the United States. So if it were to pass, then that would narrow the field of people who would qualify for public service loan forgiveness. I personally don't think that it is going to pass because it really requires a change of legislation. And I don't think there's really the political will to make those changes. So issuing that executive order like Trump did is basically saying to the Department of Ed, I would like you to make these changes. And it's kind of like telling your kid to go clean their room. It may happen, it may not. It's still got to go through a whole big process. And, then even if they did make those changes, it would be subject to litigation and probably go all the way up to the Supreme Court. So any of those changes that you see in the news probably wouldn't take effect or hold for 2-3 years. So if you are working at a not-for-profit, then you just want to stay the course, make those payments under PSLF, certify your employment each year. And if you're not sure how to do this, there are some advocates like myself and some other people who specialize or really focus their practice on helping people make sure that they get as much loan forgiveness as they can.
Amazing. Listen, you helped a lot of people breathe right now because, like I said, a lot of people are like, they're nervous. I mean, they're worried at what's going on. They're looking at the news, they're looking at the social media headlines, and they're like, what is going to happen here? Especially as people are trying to make sure they restructure their finances for what's to come. So I think that everything you said is really important. And if you just joined us, we're talking with Rae Kaplan, head attorney at Kaplan Law Firm and student loan expert. So let's talk about something that I know I'm going through. Okay. That's one of the benefits of doing a radio show and interviewing people. You can sort of get this expert help on camera, because I know for me, I was enrolled in the SAVE plan, and that happened under the Biden administration. And for me, just to be transparent, I wasn't making any payments, and I would get the notification each month ever since October 2023 from the Department of Education, let me know like, hey, this is what you owe. And it said 0. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, did something happen that's wrong? Like, am I about to be in trouble? But no, it was 0 because based on what I put in, the information I put in, They said, hey, you don't have to pay anything. And it honestly is something, as I started my new job at that time with Clutch Points, it really helped me out as far as restructuring my finances and making sure that everything is all good for me, especially as I was paying my Sally Mae loans. That was something that provided a lot of relief to me. And I know for me, I know that the save plan is held up in the courts now, it's frozen. We're told, hey, listen, everything is all good because you can stay on that plan as it, as the court process plays out. But it seems like either or. It's either the court strike it down or they say, hey, it was all good back in 2024. And you have the Trump administration is going to strike it down anyway. So I know a lot of people did not know what the SAVE plan was. I talked to a lot of my young alumni friends and colleagues. And when I told them I was on the SAVE plan, they're very knowledgeable about what's going on. But they said, what is that? Like, what's the SAVE plan? So could you briefly explain to us what the SAVE plan is and how it became such a popular option for me and other graduates?
Oh yeah, my clients love the SAVE plan. We love the SAVE plan. So basically there's different income-driven repayment plans available under the law. And one of them was done by the Biden administration by executive order called the SAVE plan. And it was basically a new formula that could be applied to your loans. And when you applied that formula to the borrower and their loans and their income, it slashed most people's payments by at least 50%. So let's say your payment was supposed to be $100 a month. And, after the SAVE formula was applied, now it's only 50 or less. And for a lot of people, it made their payment go down to $0 a month. And as crazy as that sounds, that payment of zero counts towards regular loan forgiveness, which is what you get after 20 years. If you're in an income-based repayment plan like SAVE, your loans get forgiven. A lot of people don't know that. So even if you're making payments under an income-based payment plan and your payment, which is zero, it still counts towards that 20 years of getting your loans forgiven. Now, what happened was a bunch of states sued the Department of Ed and said, listen, the SAVE payment plan with the formula, that's not in the statute. You guys just wrote that and then tried to make a law without going through Congress and the Senate. And so we think it's unconstitutional. So what they did is they said, okay, everybody who's already been enrolled in SAVE, who has nice low monthly payments, maybe zero, maybe $10 a month, whatever it is, those people are going to be placed in something called SAVE forbearance. SAVE forbearance is basically where your payment's zero and no interest is accruing on the loans. It's about 8 million people. And they said, until this gets sorted out through the courts, your payment's going to stay zero and no interest is going to be accruing, which is great because it basically means your loans are frozen. And as you said, it frees up other money, right? So then if you have private loans, maybe you want to aggressively pay down those private loans. Or you want to do something else with the money. Maybe you want to aggressively pay off some other high interest debt, but it allows you some nice breathing room. But if you're working in the public sector, let's say you're a healthcare worker and you're working in a hospital, or you're a teacher or professor, you don't want to stay in that SAVE forbearance because time in that SAVE forbearance does not count towards that public service loan forgiveness. So you don't want to just hang out in SAVE if you're going for a public service loan forgiveness. But if you're not, because you're in the private sector, I don't really see any problem with staying in that SAVE forbearance. It's a nice break from payments. No interest is accruing. And until we hear otherwise, you don't have to make any payments on your loans.
I love it. And my question to that is, what do we have to prepare for? Because I know for me, not gonna lie to you, in November, when it was election day, that night when we sort of knew what things were, I really just sat up and I knew the first thing, because there was a lot of things that were chief on my mind, but the first thing I knew was that the student loan process, and especially the SAVE plan, was likely gone. And I knew I needed to do something to try to figure out how to rearrange my money to make sure that whenever federal loan payments start back, that I'm going to be able to pay them, because it's like, there's nothing more I can do. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure my money is good and make sure that I can pay it. But even still, with me successfully doing that, I'm still sort of in flux on what the future is, because you have the talk about the Department of Education, even though we know that can happen via Congress, the Department of Education being closed, right? And we have all these other situations going on, all this mixed messaging going on in the media and on social media. So I wanted to ask you, what is the future of student loan repayment? And what can we do to prepare? Do we need to, stock up on our money? Do we need to, we need to monitor our spending, but do we need to really micro monitor our spending to make sure we have money to allocate towards repayment? Like, what do we need to do? Because I know that a lot of people are anxious, they're nervous, they're scared because they're trying to figure out what's next.
Yes. Okay. So that's a great question. I would say try to tune out as much as possible stuff on social media, unless it's from an attorney who focuses on student loan law. I've seen a lot of financial advisors even get this stuff wrong. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. One thing you want to do is go to studentaid.gov. That's the site that's run by the Department of Ed. And there you can see your loan balance, when the payments are due, et cetera. Remember, they try to put everybody in that standard payment plan is the only option. Now, the other thing to do is once you know who your servicer is, create an online account with your servicer, because your servicer, like your mortgage servicer, their job is to send you statements and keep track of your payments. So you want to make sure that when you get a statement from your loan servicer, let's say it's Nelnet or Ed Financial, you have a file and you keep those statements and keep a record of the payments that you're making. Let's say you applied for an income-based repayment plan and they approve you, and your payment's $200 a month. Because remember, income-based payment, the payments are going to be very reasonable. Now, there's other ways, there are tips and tricks to keep your payment as low as possible, because often they will want you to include your spouse's income. You don't have to, at least under the current law. You don't have to include your spouse's income. So there are ways to exclude your spouse's income and keep your payment nice and low. So you want to get the lowest income-based payment plan possible, and then just continue to make those payments and make sure you are paying attention. If your servicer sends you an email, or go online, say, put it in your calendar in your iPhone once every 6 months, log into your Ed Financial account, go into your inbox and take a look and see, hey, are there any statements or any letters in here, anything that looks like it needs me to take action? And that way you're kind of monitoring it. Now, what you mentioned before is, okay, what should we be prepared for? So that's kind of what to do now. Studentaid.gov, create an account also with your servicer, and make sure that you're paying attention for letters or statements from your servicer. And if you're not in SAVE, enroll in a income-based repayment plan. It will be very reasonable. And if you need help, our office is certainly happy to help you. We can help anybody in all 50 states as long as your loans are federal. So, okay, that's what to do now. In terms of kind of looking down the road, because there's been some talk about, well, the Department of Ed kind of shut down and then they're going to transfer all federal loans to maybe the SBA or the Treasury Department. If that happens, it's going to be big splashy news and you're going to know all about it. And then you want to make sure that you print out all of your statements, anything you can from studentaid.gov showing your current balance and how many years you've been enrolled in income-driven repayment, because what if all that information doesn't get properly transferred? We've seen that before. Talking about big bureaucracies, they're going to make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, and they don't have a lot of experience in dealing with federal student loans. I really hope this doesn't happen, because I think it's going to create a lot of chaos and confusion for borrowers. But just kind of looking down that road, if it does, the best thing you can do is just have those statements printed out or stored somewhere safe so that you can show them if you get something from the SBA saying, your federal loans were transferred to us and your balance is 300,000, where you know your balance is only 20,000. Okay. You'll have proof from studentaid.gov that the SBA has some kind of incorrect information going on. So you want to be able to verify any, what you're saying in case there are any mistakes. Now, the other thing is that the basics of the law in terms of what you're eligible for, even if the loans go to the SBA or the Department of Treasury, the fact that you're eligible for income-driven repayments, other types of loan forgiveness, that's written into the contract that you signed when you agreed to take out federal loans. So your rights and privileges don't go anywhere just because they're transferred to a different part of the federal government. So you'll still have all those same rights to be an income-based repayment, public service loan forgiveness. So all that stuff is still written into the law. That's not going anywhere. It's just a different part of the government would be administering this. That's all.
I love it. Listen, I really appreciate the clarity that you brought here. And just in my mind, between this interview and watching Suits. Okay, I'm like, I should have been an attorney. Like, I'm like, man, I could have helped the world. I could have helped a lot of HBCU students and alumni. I could have helped a lot of folks in college, because this is ridiculous. I think you're doing an amazing job. And first and foremost, I appreciate all the work that you're doing to make sure that college graduates understand their rights, understand what they need to do in this turbulent time where we're just trying to figure out what needs to be done and what we can do to make sure we keep our money and stay ahead and repay what we need to repay. So thank you so much for coming on. And just last but not least, because I think this interview was so beneficial, a lot of folks are going to want to reach out. They're going to have questions. They're going to want your services. So where can we follow you on social media? How can we find your law firm? And how can we work with you?
So you can visit our website at Financial Relief, all one word, financialrelief.com, or raekaplan.com, which is RaeKaplan. So financialrelief.com, raekaplan.com. You can always call our office, 2-312-294-8989. And we do post on social media with a lot of tips and tricks. I try to post once a day. And that's Student Loan Rae. And that's our Instagram handle. And we also post on LinkedIn and all the ones, all that stuff. We try to post everywhere because we really want to keep people informed and also keep people calm, because there is a lot of anxiety right now. And the other thing is that if you're not sure what to do, don't do anything drastic. Make sure you talk to somebody who really understands student loan law and can apply the law to your situation, because I've seen a lot of situations where people don't know that they actually are eligible to get their entire loan balance forgiven. And when we submit the documents for them, our firm has had over $23 million in loans forgiven, just my firm. And most people, they don't believe me when I tell them you're eligible to have your loans forgiven. And they're kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it. And then they get that letter stating, congratulations, your balance is zero. And, they're thrilled. And that's why I really like this area of practice, because there's no downside. We can help. I like taking a burden off of people's shoulders. And I started doing it because my own student loans were very confusing to me. My friends also, all attorneys, by the way, had no idea what to do or how the law worked when it came to student loans. So it was nice to be able to find some answers that really applied to people's lives in a way that makes a difference,
I love it. I love it. Listen, like I said, you are doing an amazing job and you're helping a lot of people. And for sure, these next 4 years, I know everything you're going to be doing is going to give a lot of people hope and relief for what's to come. But listen, Rae Kaplan, head attorney at Kaplan Law Firm and student loan expert, thank you so much for coming on. And listen, HBCU Folks family, make sure to stay tuned in with her, because it's a lot going on. We need to make sure we're aware of what's happening and what our options are. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to HBCUPulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.